Welcome back to this News 13 special report into buried secrets. The contamination from the CTS site greatly concerns many families living nearby.
News 13 investigative reporter Mike Mason hosted a town hall meeting in July, packed with residents.
On July 8th, News 13 hosted a town hall meeting at the Skyland Fire Department. All those concerned with the contamination at the CTS site were invited to attend. More than 100 people packed the room. Can you raise your hands if you think that you may have been affected by any contamination regarding CTS? Just keep them up for a second, please. Okay, that's quite a few people. Has anybody here had a relative who they think died because of being exposed to contamination regarding TCE? About 15 people. Although the Rice and Robinsons were the first families notified about the contamination in 1999, many more have since been affected. Some who weren't notified are now concerned their water was also contaminated. In the past year, CTS has paid to install water filtration systems at 96 homes, all located within 1 mile of the site. Buncombe County has connected dozens of other homes to city water lines, but there are more than 100 additional families still waiting to be connected. And county taxpayers will end up footing that bill. Some residents are furious with how officials have handled the whole situation.
Where are the politicians? This is a huge community with ramifications not only here, but for the French Broad River. They're not here. If they gave a rat's butt, they'd be here.
Amen.
Some living close to CTS are simply disgusted they still don't have access to clean water.
When are they putting the municipal water lines in? It's been almost a year now since they promised us municipal water.
Others who recently moved to the area are in disbelief.
I moved here less than a year ago, and this is the first time I'm hearing of this CTS issue. I'm grossly sick right now hearing about this, all the human beings that are affected.
These are families that have scars for life, people that have died. This is America. That's why I came to live here. Where is the justice?
Overall, residents are hoping for one thing.
We want the chemicals out more than anything else and the site cleaned up.
According to Congressman Mark Meadows, that's a top priority. Meadows told us he questions how EPA officials handle the CTS site, especially when it comes to the Rice family.
And the fact that they did test, they knew there was contamination and nobody told them, that's troubling.
Meadows also reacted to new documents we uncovered.
The information that I've seen to date is very troubling and would indicate that there was certainly improprieties in the way that it was done.
One of those improprieties may include a report the EPA sent to News 13. We found it in those CDs, a copy of the EPA's inspection of CTS from 1990. You may remember how the EPA's version always had some pages missing. For the first time, the report appeared to be complete, all 196 pages accounted for. But after careful review, we found the pages were hand-numbered. In fact, there were more than 20 duplicate pages inserted.
It gives the appearance of being 196 pages.
We found the EPA did not give us the full report, and the critical documents that had always been missing still were, including test results from the 1990 inspection. The EPA refuses to explain how this happened, saying it's all part of the criminal investigation.
There is a story here that they don't want uncovered. Your discs that WLOS acquired from your FOIA uncovered.
And remember the administrative record that disappeared from the PAC library in 2007? Federal law requires the EPA to make that record public so residents will know about the contamination and how it will be cleaned up. Since 1999, the EPA knew TCE was contaminating wells, and at that time federal law required the EPA to make that record public, but they didn't until 2007. News 13 questioned why EPA officials waited 8 long years before releasing it. They then sent us this email, and for the first time admitted the administrative record should have been released for public view in October 1999.
The potential for cover-up, the potential for evidence that wasn't shared.
The EPA's administrative record could have provided that key evidence the Rices and Robinsons needed while negotiating with CTS. Instead, they agreed to settle in 2005, something they say they wouldn't have done if they had known the record would show up in the library 2 years later. McQueen feels there's enough evidence in those 3 CDs alone to support criminal charges against EPA officials.
All of the timeline now is clear, what they did versus what they should have done, what they did when they realized what they should have done. All of these things are documented with the documents you got.
4 days after our town hall meeting, the EPA sent this certified letter to News 13 stating they had inadvertently released sensitive information to us. They now claim those 3 CDs, which hold nearly 63,000 documents, contain personally identifiable information, along with confidential business information, which should be returned to the EPA. They also requested we destroy any copies we had made.
I know why they want it back, because the documents that you have serve as indictments for their behavior. I believe that they are scared to the point of paralysis now.
Meadows wants to know what, if anything, EPA officials have to hide.
If it is a cover-up, we have to make sure that not only we hold them accountable, but that we send people to jail.
Meadows plans to request congressional hearings, hoping that will force EPA officials to explain how a Superfund site turned into a landslide of controversy.
And it is very, very concerning that we would have this, because what we've got is an agency that didn't do their job.
In 2011, the state's Department of Health and Human Services conducted a health assessment of people potentially affected by the contamination at the old CTS site. Within a 1-mile radius of CTS, they found 49 cases of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and 10 people with liver or renal cancer. It may sound alarming, but officials determined that number was normal, considering the overall population.
They have a very limited scope.
Katie Hicks is assistant director of the nonprofit organization Clean Water for North Carolina. It's an environmental justice group that lobbies for safe water and public health issues. After reviewing the state's health assessment, Hicks found the study to be incomplete and misleading. For example, officials didn't speak directly with former CTS workers or local residents. The state only reviewed patient records at medical facilities between 1990 and 2005. Anyone who had moved out of the area was excluded.
So you have people who have been drinking from wells in the South Asheville community who, just because they weren't contacted for the study or didn't know what was going on, it's assumed that, well, people probably didn't come into contact with it, so therefore there's not an exposure pathway.
The Public Health Division addressed some concerns they received and put them in the appendix of the report. They admit they had limited data to work with. This past July, the state issued a follow-up assessment with similar results. Hicks also questioned several conclusions in that report, including one stating that chain-link fence around the Rice's Springs will protect the public from exposure to TCE.
So to claim that the public health threat is minimized just by putting up a fence is short-sighted and just not helpful to the residents who are pushing for cleanup.
And the recent study didn't take into consideration the toxic vapors in the air.
Breathing these vapors is one of the public health threats that could be the most urgent.
In 2011, Dot Rice also did her own survey, going door to door, interviewing residents who lived within a quarter mile of CTS. She managed to compile a list of dozens who reported having serious illnesses.
And we came up with 64 cancers within a fourth of a mile area.
These cancer registries that they're drawing the data from, this is exactly the kind of real on-the-ground data that they're not picking up on.
At the end of the day, this story is about ordinary people brought together by one common belief, that toxic chemicals changed their lives forever. Whether they had worked at CTS,
Yeah, I lost years off my life.
or had been drinking contaminated water,
Our whole life has been destroyed.
they each have a story. With so much time passing by before anyone knew their drinking water was contaminated, many wonder, what if? What if CTS and the EPA had simply cleaned things up?
How can you undo something? You can't. I wish we could, but you can't.
What if the EPA told people their water was contaminated the minute they got those test results?
Nobody told them about the testing in 1990. We're gonna have to go, I'm sorry.
And for those already diagnosed with cancer, what can be done for them?
That's a difficult subject. I really don't know of specific treatment for the TCE exposure.
Others wonder if they'll be affected later in life. Is it just a matter of time? That constant worrying. Will I be next?
I lay awake at night and I think, where is it all going to end? We're just hoping that maybe with your story that you can reach somebody that feels for us, and we'll see that somebody does something to get a cleanup.
Last year, the EPA's Inspector General launched an investigation into allegations of fraud and other criminal acts involving how EPA officials handled the CTS site. Many feel congressional hearings are the only way to compel these officials to testify, and that's really the only way we'll find out what happened out here. We'll, of course, keep you updated. At the CTS site in South Asheville, I'm investigative reporter Mike Mason, News 13.
We reached out to Congressman Patrick McHenry and Mark Meadows. Both support the criminal investigation into how the EPA handled the CTS site. Meadows also wants EPA officials to face congressional hearings.
Senator Kay Hagan says she'll do whatever she can to protect the health of residents living near CTS, but she denied our request for an interview. Senator Richard Burr did not respond to calls or emails.
State Representative Tim Moffitt has requested complete removal and replacement of the new soil at the CTS site.
We tried contacting CTS officials and their attorneys numerous times, but they have not responded.
Thank you for joining us for this News 13 investigation into buried secrets.